wake of the death of Osama bin Laden, the question now is, what will it take to truly defeat al-Qaeda? And joining me now is Representative Peter King, Chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. Congressman, thank you for joining me.
Thank you,
Before we get to that big question, tell me what your view is about the pictures of a dead bin Laden. Would you release them?
Yeah, this is not a major issue with me, but I've spoken to people who have seen the pictures, and I think it is important to get out the picture of his face. My understanding is that it does not look ghoulish, or it's not going to terrify people. And like you mentioned the conspiracy theorists. I think one way to head that off, or at least to minimize it, would be to put the picture out so it doesn't look as if we're hiding anything. Again, if it was something that were particularly brutal to look at, I would say no, it might be offensive. But from what I've heard from people who've seen it, I think it's probably the right thing to do to release it. But, that's up to the administration. I'm not going to make a major issue with them on it. But again, from what I know, I would say yes.
I mean, I don't really understand the difference, to be honest with you, in terms of potential propaganda use between killing bin Laden and releasing a picture of him dead. I mean, it's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. Again, if we're horribly distorted or, something really brutal, I can see why people may find it offensive. It can stir up emotions. But to me, it should be out there, and it would, again, cut off the conspiracy theorists and at least minimize it. But there's no doubt he is dead. We killed him. We should be proud of it.
Obviously, with bin Laden gone, the question now is what is left of al-Qaeda? And the general view seems to be it still exists. It's quite an amorphous kind of organisation. No one's quite sure where its head now is. But it's still dangerous. It's still out there. It's still active. One of the big issues that's come out of this is the suggestion that let's call it torture, and we can come to the distinction in a minute, of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed in Guantanamo Bay may have led to information which led to the identification of bin Laden's courier and therefore bin Laden. Do you believe that that is what happened? And do you believe, if that's the case, that vindicates the use of interrogation methods like waterboarding?
Let me say, first of all, I don't consider it torture. We can have that as a separate debate. I consider it enhanced interrogation. No, but from my understanding, speaking to people who were very much involved, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was waterboarded, obviously. Not in Guantanamo, this didn't happen. It happened in Europe, at a site in Europe. He was waterboarded, and after the waterboarding was finished, he did give us information on the courier. That's the first significant information we had on the courier, which ultimately led to the shooting and the killing of bin Laden. And not just Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, but also al-Libi. He was also subject to very intense interrogation in Europe, I believe in 2005, and he also gave us information. So I think it's fair to say that it was a long road to getting bin Laden, but the first major steps on that road resulted from the interrogation, very intense interrogation of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and al-Libi. I do support it, and I'm only speaking for myself now when I say this, but I think it was the moral thing to do. I'm not defending it. I'm actually being very emphatic, being very proactive in supporting it. I use the example, Piers, if on September 10th, 2001, we had captured Mohammed Atta, one of the other 19 conspirators, and we knew that somewhere, in the next several days, 3,000 Americans were going to be murdered. I say it's the moral thing to do. If we had to hold his head underwater to save those 3,000 people, do it. And I went to so many wakes and funerals after September 11th. I would never want to go to a wake and funeral and tell a mother, a father, a brother, or sister of someone who was burned to death, who had to jump 96 stories to their death, and say, we could have saved your son or daughter, but I didn't want to hold Mohammed Atta's head underwater.
The problem is that argument is perfectly valid, and people will agree with you, I'm sure, in large numbers. But what happens if American servicemen are captured? Say these Navy SEALs have been captured. Would you have been perfectly happy for them to be waterboarded and put through all the other things that you think are perfectly acceptable for the people at, say, Guantanamo Bay?
There's two things. One, Navy SEALs are waterboarded as part of their training. They go through it as part of their training. Secondly, al-Qaeda is going to torture and kill our prisoners no matter what we do. And again, if you're respecting the Geneva Conventions and we're talking about POWs, that's one thing. But if you're talking about non-uniformed terrorists, then I think a different set of rules do apply. And again, I don't consider it torture. Again, it's done to our own Navy SEALs as part of their training.
How effective, though, is this information when, you know, when we talked about Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, he was waterboarded 183 times, and apparently the information he gave about the courier was actually false. So how effective is it?
No, I've spoken to people on the ground, people who are involved in that, and that was the first significant information they got was from Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and from al-Libi. That's what started the process going, which with much more information obviously gained later on, part of a very long process. Osama bin Laden was killed. But we would not have gotten there, I don't believe, if we had not gotten the initial information from Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. I also have spoken to a number of people who are very familiar with the Khalid Sheikh Mohammed situation. We did get a large amount of information from him that was very useful.
Well, it's a very contentious issue.
Sure.
Congressman, thank you for joining me and sparking the debate. When we come back after this break, we're going to be talking about exactly this.